It's
Oh
Friday
my
night,
fuck.
and welcome to the Fancaste, episode 27, where we discuss all things WCBS and Star Wars and other stuff. I am your host, Lapis Anus, and joining me tonight is the one and the only Liquid Metal Pro.
I'm running with scissors.
It is our year-end show, and we're going to let it all hang out. We don't care. I'm 4 sheets to the wind. I'm working on being 19. So,
and
we had a lot
I
of, huh?
and I mixed some Bacardi and Coke here, and I have no idea why I'm feeling so nice all of a sudden.
Yeah, don't beer pop. Hey, I was shooting video reviews of beers earlier today, and I actually had a party foul, knocked the bottle over. Fortunately, most of it was in the glass, but not all of it. Now, for
Uh,
those of you who can hear tapping in the background, that is not me typing while LMP speaks. That is my daughter playing Overwatch, and she keeps coughing because she's not well and she doesn't take medicine because she likes to sit in a cold basement with improper footwear. So, but that's neither here nor there. Teenagers, what will you do with them? So we've had a lot of stuff happen. No, when we started this several months ago,
several years.
Kendo Slice and I started this. LMP joined in. We had Reality's Frank, who I thought might be on tonight, but I guess his computer problems are still continuing and he hasn't fully fixed them. So it's
He's in
just
another
LMP and
reality.
I, and really, in many ways, this started as an idea that, my understanding, that you and Kendo and Oggs for president had.
Yeah, I mean, it was I mean, I forgot who brought up the idea originally, if it was Oggs or Kendall, but I remember one of them brought up the idea, and I remember joining in on that conversation and basically saying, something like that should exist. A commentary where the fans kind of join in, give an opinion on the matter. Because WCBS, Jeff, Dion, and the rest of the cast. I'm sorry if I'm not naming all of you. It's just that, well, something is not right with my brain ever since I drank this stuff. So there are certain thoughts that are not completely process, but whatever. Anyways, case in point, the cast was bringing up very good ideas, very good points, talking points, and we felt that there should have been some kind of like forum where fans would get together and discuss these ideas and open up discussions. Whoever initially with the idea, it was talked about, hinted at, and we never actually thought it was actually going to come to a reality. I to this very day find it a bit like surprising that we're this far in. Doesn't matter how many fans or viewers we had weekly, but I'm surprised we made it this far and still continuing.
Yep, you caught me mid-chew on my trail mix that I put together. Well, basically, Dustin mentioned it more than once. The second he mentioned me both times, which I wasn't aware that you guys were having any kind of conversation. So I was like, okay, fine. You've mentioned me. I'm not going to wait for somebody to figure this out. I'm going to figure, because I've been in leadership. And so I reached out to Kendo and I said, hey, how serious are you guys about wanting to do this? And he and I did some experimentation. We did I think one or two by ourselves. We did one with the three of us. We did have an early episode that was lost, that I found the hard drive that stuff's on, and now I just got to find the time. I really think I can recover it, but I'm not 100%. Because basically, after we did that, I had dual hard drive failure. So I had hard drive failure on I have an iMac, a 2010 iMac as my main system, and I had a server that had I think 3 terabyte drive at the time, and they both went south at the same time. And so episode 1 was kind of a failure. The true episode 1, it's maybe we'll release it as unreleased, finally found. And I just realized that I nearly need to plug in my let's see if I can do this midstream. I don't know if it'll work, but I'll keep talking while I'm trying to plug in this microphone. So we did episode 1. We've done some things. We've had some other people on. Oggs for President came on for some episodes. We had Reality's Frank for some episodes, and things were going along good. And then Frank had some issues, and I don't know, is this thing working? I'm not sure what my input is now.
I can hear you.
Yeah, I'll just keep talking. try and change my system preferences midstream. If not, I'll just hit record again and we'll just keep on trucking. I can edit it together and ta-da! It feels like movie magic. So the input is internal microphone. I'm going to switch right now. And here we are with, yep. Okay, so I have got the input, and hopefully this is better. Because you guys are always louder than me, even though I've cranked my input up all the way.
Well, but, it's probably because I'm a spick. We're naturally inclined to speak fast and loud, so there's that too.
So we tried all kinds of things. I've got the Soundflower installed. I never could get it to work properly. For some reason, the call recorder that I'm using inside of Skype is what's interesting is somewhere along the line I was able to put you guys in a separate channel and me in the other one, and then blend together as stereo, or actually technically mono, and reflected as stereo, so we come in both ears. But since then I haven't been able to do that. So I had the free version, and then I increased it. Bought the plugin. I don't know, $40 or whatever it was, and we've had an interesting ride. We've had some episodes that got maybe 30 or 40 views, and that's it. We've had episodes over 100, and I know that WCBS is growing like leaps and bounds, and they put in 300 and some odd % is what Jeff said they grew this year, but we're starting to get more. Our last week's episode got quite a few more views. I know at one time, and I'll double check here right as we're talking, but and maybe because of the Star Wars, so we had 144 views on last week's episode. The 2 weeks prior, one of which has Linda Hamilton, and we also have the late August Ames in the thumbnails. They were our BBCs for those respective weeks. Those two combined are only 100 even, 57 and 43. That's 100. So we almost have as many views of last week's because we have a Star Wars related thumbnail with our BBC on it, whose name I don't remember at the moment. And then you can almost go back 3 weeks. So we're almost to the point of being, so Morgan McLeod is her name. Back, episode 23 has 73 views, with the Super Friends is what we titled it. Baby Back McRib, because Kendo talked about the McRib quite a bit. So we're almost, but not quite. We need about 30 more views to have as many views on. We talk Star Wars quite a bit. We've had multiple times where it showed up in the thumbnail as a text. But this was the first time that I did, as opposed to either a collage of images or a single image of our BBC, I was able to crop out our BBC and put some kind of Star Wars thing. Now, we talked about this, and we'll get onto it again, with the audience thing going down, and it's gone down since then. On Rotten Tomatoes, it's gone down more on Metacritic. But it's very interesting. It's almost like Jeff says, many times they put Star Wars in their thumbnail and the title, and it's amazing how many more views they've got. Now, the last several weeks, they've got an incredible growth. They have incredible growth this year. Congratulations to the guys. I know they retooled and reformatted about mid-year. Some people kind of got booted off. Coach Loudy kind of got booted off because, well, again, he didn't show up for 8 weeks, didn't let Jeff know what was going on. And what was really starting, what we saw this year with WCBS, maybe let's do a retrospective of the main show itself. What started to kind of happen, it really happened back in March, and I got a cough. So I didn't hit the cough button. But
cough noted.
Excuse me. So back in March, several of us, I was included, we went down to Atlanta to see Nick and the premiere of a movie which now shall not be named because of some crap that happened. But that was kind of the start of it. Previous to that, we had Loudy that was kind of hanging in the wind. We had Jeff really get all over Dustin. Whether you agree or disagree is immaterial, but it happened. And there was this core that was starting to form, and that core was Nick, Dion, and Jeff. They didn't fully realize it, but when I was there, I kind of witnessed it firsthand. Phil and Dan also came down for that premiere. But there was some discord there, which I don't fully understand. I'm not going to make excuses or theories as to why there's some discord between Phil and Nick in particular. I know Phil doesn't understand it, but I don't either. I'm not gonna make excuses or suppositions here. It's not really my place. But there was some beginnings of things, and then we kind of got mid-year. I mean, obviously, we started. What was our first step? I know when would we post? Was that July or was that June? Remember?
I think it was July.
So 6 months ago, June 10th is when we did the first Fancast. Obviously, what I did with that one is I took the WCBS thumbnail from that episode, which I'm not even sure what it is. I think it's 73. And we wrote Fancast all over it, kind of like graffiti, because this was kind of like the fans were speaking back, the fans were taking over, we're going to do our own show. And we had the idea of having other fans join us from time to time, which we did. We had some other people join us, various. But what we discovered, this is what WCBS discovered with episode 100, and we probably could have given a good warning, is the chemistry was all wrong. And we will be getting back. I did post this in the Facebook page. I will be doing the fan rants probably about the second or third week of January is my target for right now. I got too much going on this week and the next couple weeks, but I really want to do fan rants with a couple people, and we'll talk about that formula later. But that's where we started. Then we had, I think it was episode 2 where we had the milk carton with missing is not your father's clitoris challenge. That was whoever that was on Facebook or YouTube started to not be around, and then by the third episode we started to kind of feel our oats a little bit. We started playing with thumbnails. We didn't have the concept of the BBC, I don't believe, by then, but we have an British actress whose name escapes me at the moment on the thumbnail. We had a picture of Reality's Frank on episode 4. Episode 5, we had a picture I found of Venom. And then we kind of started to hit our stride. So we've changed a bit. Kendo obviously has gone on to the big show. Sometimes he shows up. Obviously tonight he hasn't, even though he's quite drunk, but that's fine. I'd include him anyway. Episode 3 is when we had our thumbnail template from Jeff. And I've used it ever since. And we've kind of, we've hit our own mark. And it's really interesting. Week to week, we'll have a lot of views and we won't have so many views. And I've experimented with titles. I've experimented with thumbnails. I don't know what the big draw is, but we're starting to kind of be true to our own selves. And so we're a speak back. And I know I've been talking a long time. And I'll give you a moment here, LMP.
Fine. Go ahead and say what you got to say, because right. I mean, this is really a retrospective, not just so much the main show, but also our show in the sense of what we were trying to accomplish,
right?
From the beginning,
right. We kind of went back and forth on who was going to record. I think Kendo was going to record at one point, but what it's kind of become is I've become kind of the master of ceremonies here, and I wouldn't say I own this this podcast as much as Jeff owns WCBS, because that was his idea. This is kind of a collaborative effort. I just kind of stepped up and volunteered to record. And who knows what 2018 will bring. I'm starting to see more traffic on my own channel. When Kendra was here last weekend and I was over at Phil's, we recorded, 5 or 6 beer reviews. I forget exactly how many. One of the beers we did review was one of my own homebrews from back in February. It's a high craft beer, so it'll age fairly nicely. Maybe another year or two at most. And it's a dark beer. People who don't like dark beers liked it. I've got Phil and Kendo and Jeff all trying it. I can't remember if I have Phil on camera. I know I have Kendo and Jeff. So there's more reviews. Those reviews with the WCBS crew directly have 2 to 3 times the views of me by myself. So I don't know what that means fully. I don't know if it means I need to do some more collabs with them. I know that Nick is open to when he visits that he's going to bring some beer. Kendo brought a bunch of beer for me to review. I did more today. I shot some more today. I still have more beer reviews to do. I'm probably going to weigh 300 pounds by the time I get done with all this beer. But anyway, we found our own voice, and it's somewhat of a fan speak back, but many times it's like the fans' views on the topics. Plus, we go off on our own. We've done a few things by ourselves. I still would like to get some other content in between our weekly podcast, but between this channel and my main channel, it's a lot of work. I just recently changed jobs, and I have much more to do. I mean, this is today. I got to leave early, but I did an 11-hour day yesterday and a 10-hour Wednesday and a 10-hour day yesterday. So and that hopefully won't become the norm, but I'm just saying, and I come home, I'm like, I don't even want to go to the gym. I'm so tired. So, I think the Fancaste has come a long way. In what did we say? I say this was episode 27. We're starting to kind of come into our own. I do want to start having more other, more guests, if you will, in some kind of fashion. Like I said, we will pick the fan rants back up. I will get off my lazy butt and make a thumbnail for it, and I will post. On my main channel, the thing with Christopher Littleton and I is out there. I think it's called Fan Trials or something like that. I think Fan Rants works a little better. We'll come up with a different concept, but the idea being, someone just rants uninterrupted for 10 minutes or so. Because, what I noticed, and this was my take of episode 100, I know the main cast was not happy with that episode, and there's a We're Sorry video, which still hasn't been posted. But to me, what it showed was when you do this week after week after week with the same group of people, you start to develop a pattern and a rhythm. And like right now, LMP knows, not to interrupt me, let me finish. And when he rants, I let him finish. And that was what was interrupted with episode 100. And I think in part what you need to do is, okay, let's say we have 5 or 6 guests or something. You need to do a test run with them first so that they understand, especially if they're not on one of these. Part of when I visit WCBS the main cast, because of this and my own videos, I'm used to the environment. And it is very different with the digital age. You can't all speak at once. It clobbers, and you do have to take turns, and you may have to actually revisit something. And as opposed to this diatribe of diarrhea, that's been happening with me, you tend to want to be concise and be done quickly. So anyway, LMP, I'm going to let you talk for a little bit what you think about where we've come in the last 26, 27 episodes, where we started, and just a little retrospective of this show, and then we'll get a retrospective of the year in general.
Well, in terms of everything that can be said, that should be said, you pretty much nailed them. Damn, man, am I getting drunk already off of this alone? Well, whatever. That can be said has already been said by you. So, but what I will add is that, there was, excuse me. Sorry, pardon me. That's probably what it was. Anyways, what I will add was that there was a bit of a shift, and I will agree with you that there was a bit of a shift in the show once the dynamic changed in the main show. I remember Dustin being the guy, like I'm pretty sure not only me, a lot of other people would agree that prior to the shift in terms of like the shakeup in terms of the cast, Dustin was one of our favorite characters, if not the favorite one. We joke about how he was our spirit animal and everything, but we liked him because he added a certain level of shock value to the show that almost seemed exclusive to him. Not saying that the other guys couldn't achieve that level of it, but it seemed like he was on exclusively trying to up it every week, to the point that I don't know if we were laughing because we were genuinely finding funny or because it was almost like on cue, a force of habit, so to speak.
Right, almost an absurdity for being absurd,
Yeah, it's not to knock Dustin. Overall, he contributed what he contributed to the show. There will always be perhaps one of the best jokes ever in the entire history of the series, of the main show. that he just can't stop staring at them dicks. And let's just face it, it was a running joke that ran its course, and once he basically disappeared from the show, the joke went with him. There was no point. So things really shook up, and yes, I would definitely say you were right about who was the core at that point, which was Nick, definitely Nick, definitely Dion, and of course Jeff. Like the show I don't feel it wouldn't really exist without Jeff. He's just too much of that's pretty much the show's baby. But we did the fan cast, and Kendall was given the opportunity to step up to the plate, and like a natural, he did really good with it. Not only did he win us over, like me and you, in terms of a member on the main cast, he won over the audience, and I think that's really what you're supposed to do when you come into a new role. You have to be able to adapt to the environment, and he adapted so well to it. I can only say congratulations to the guy. We got to know him. We talked to him. I believe only you and him are the only ones that what I look like, because I'm pretty much anonymous on almost every forum that I'm on right now, whether it's Twitter, Facebook. I will add this. So by the way, I've been a little more vocal and open on the main page on Facebook, but that's mostly because I'll be honest, I don't really have friends on Facebook. I really don't follow anybody other than the WCBS page. I friend the people who are essentially fans of the show. For example, Kendall, Jeff. So, and it just took off, and he just felt like a natural, and it almost felt as if the show was just continuing and it hadn't skipped a beat, and then came to a point where it almost felt like Kendall was a part of the show for since the beginning. It almost feels like, damn, this show would feel different if Kendall were to leave tomorrow. If Nick were to leave tomorrow, if Dion were to leave tomorrow, it just worked out so well for him. I'm not trying to just kiss your ass or anything right now, Kendall, but I'll definitely say you kind of brought a certain life to the show that just even won over the guys over. It won over Jeff, it won over Dion, and won over Nick. Then the guys ended up joining I know Jeff, we did that one episode with him. Got to talk to Mr. Hicks himself, Andre the Giant's son. I'm convinced to this very day he has to be on Andre the Giant's love of some sort, because the resemblance is way too uncanny. He's also pretty tall, so there's that. I remember talking to Nick once. Dion, I believe we haven't spoken, but the times that you did do the streams on Twitch, I will shit talk you. So that was me talking shit about your game playing and losing Call of Duty. But I will say this: it's definitely been a very unique experience. I don't really tend to have a lot of trust in people, but you guys seem to be very cool, very open-minded. I will admit there are times when anyone can get passionate about their beliefs or what they really appreciate in life, but that's to be expected. That's what makes us individuals. So overall, I will even say you guys, in a sense, kind of made me come out of my own, open up a little bit. You and I feel we've had a great. I know I'm saying a lot and everything else. It's probably the alcohol talking.
Oh yeah, well, and that's part of it. And excuse me, the whole time you were talking, I didn't have an instance of cough, and then as soon as I do. But part of it, in some ways, it was kind of validation of this podcast that Kendo brings a lot of energy and personality to the show, and people wonder, he's very, very similar in person. He's a bit more rambunctious on the podcast than he is in person, but not a whole lot. If people wonder exactly how tall Jeff is or I am, I posted a video the other day of he and I. We did a beer review together. We did a local beer here in Cincinnati that he brought like a 12-pack to. I couldn't believe how many he was downing so quickly. I know in that video he downs one and then pulls another one out, but he was downing those things like constantly. He's like my cousin. My cousin's probably a little leaner, but probably has more muscle mass. But about the same height. He's like 300. My cousin's like 320, I think. But he doesn't look like because a lot of muscle mass, but he does have a lot of fat. He will admit it. He played offensive lineman in high school here in LaSalle. He went to LaSalle as opposed to where Jeff and company went. And my cousin's only about 3 or 4 years younger than I am, so obviously they wouldn't know each other. But the same way, he can put down alcohol like it's not. It doesn't even affect him. It's unbelievable. But it is. I agree. It's like Kendo was the missing element. I would really like to see what kind of growth they had before he joined. Kendo has a very good marketing sense. Many of our thumbnails, he'll come up with what to put on them. Half the time, I don't even know what they mean, but they seem to fit. And like the skeet one's one I don't understand, and there's other things, and I don't need it explained to me. It's fine. But he has this uncanny knack to know, okay, this ought to be free. This ought to be a $5 part Patreon. This ought to be a $10 Patreon. This ought to be a $1 Patreon. So that's part of what's also driven Patreon. Jeff has admitted that. I don't know if he's admitted it on air or not. I don't remember. Because I've met all these guys in real life. Before they went to saw the Last Jedi, I met up with them at the Hofbräu House. I did not go see the movie with them, but Phil and Dan and Loudy were all there. Obviously I've not met Joel, I've never met Dustin, I've never met Dion, but I've met everybody else in person, and I can't wait to meet Nick again. And he wants to bring some beers up for me to review and do some shooting of that video, which is fine. He's got a nice new camera. He got it second hand, but it's a very, very good camera. I know they talk a lot about the movie that they're going to make. Hopefully the writing is going to be good. I know the technical aspects are going to be very superb, based on a conversation Nick and I had over, I guess it was chat through Facebook. He showed me some of the lenses. We kind of nerded out on the photography equipment and the video equipment. Most people don't know what the heck we're talking about, but needless to say, if anybody's wondering on the technical aspects, it should be spectacular. Now it's just really down to the writing and the acting of the Who Killed Phil mystery. But they had a fair amount of growth, and so some of it's some of it's Star Wars, some of it's the topical stuff. What I hope is, because I think that I felt like they really ballooned almost 2 years ago because of the Force Awakens video. And I myself, when I started to become mentioned by them, picked up like 150 subscribers over about 6 months. I've lost almost all of them. A lot of them are dead accounts that YouTube has purged. Some of it was probably active unsubscribed. So I'm hoping that it warms my heart a bit when they have 12,000 views or 15,000 views when they only have 8,000, 9,000 subscribers. So that means that they got more views than subscribers. That's good. It's when it's the other way around. Like I think it's down to like 385 subscribers. At one time I had over 500, and I'll get 12 views on a video, and it's very frustrating. That means there's a lot of subscribers that don't give a crap, and I'm sure they have some. We've seen people, if you go back, they're old videos. There's people that no longer post. I don't know why. I really wish some of these people would come back. They had great insight a year ago, 2 years ago, and that interaction is really what this podcast is about and what WCBS is about. So I know we hawk for them a bit, but if you're not a member of the Facebook page, it's a great place. We've got more and more people. We're getting some women that are posting. Just don't come with thin skin, because if you post something people don't like, Richard Tanner is in there now, who's the director and editor of Frankenthug, which is a movie that Nick shot and plugs a lot. He's quite contrarian. He doesn't always agree with the flow, but to me, that exchange of ideas was what's important. So I know there's some people on Facebook that are very quick to call names and call people whatever. It's like, no, that's the wrong attitude. It's like, okay, you like something I don't. Why is it? What do you like about it? Let me tell you what I don't like about it. Let's have that discussion, not an argument. It is a discussion. And maybe through that you will change my mind a little bit. Maybe I will change your mind a little bit. And that's how ideas grow and prosper and combine and come to be something that the two halves end up being far less than the whole. If you point fingers and use language that like you're attacking someone, even if you aren't, but you use a language as that, people stop listening, and they just wait for their moment to talk. And that's also what I noticed happened on episode 100. People were not listening. They were waiting for, oh, hey, there's a break in the conversation, or I'm just going to interrupt. And so anyway, this has been a long-winded intro. WCBS guys, I appreciate where you've gone. In some ways, I'm sad that some of the past members are really kind of, I wouldn't say pushed to the side so much as a necessary weeding of personalities, but I will look forward to review episodes, which I'm sure there'll be. And I think behind the scenes, some of these guys are going to be a little more involved than what you might think.
Me personally, I just would like to, give the guy some congratulations. I remember when I first saw when I first started watching it, I believe it was around the time that Force Awakens came out, and I was never gonna see the movie. Like I've said numerous times, I'm not really a Star Wars fan. I have knocked it in the past, but generally I've always found some level of enjoyment or some level of intrigue in it that was worthy of discussion. We'll get more into that in a little bit. And how it really is a very influential series. We're talking about from the not necessarily from the prequels, but from the originals. But even some of the prequels might have influenced just a bit, to some degree. But I remember there were a lot of people basically talking about how Rey was a Mary Sue, how this was an attack on men. And, this was all in part with what was going to happen with Ghostbusters later on. And that whole, thing, I was not exactly in the best mindset at the time. I actually had left the internet, not because of anything dumb like bullying or anything like that. I just had too much going on in my own personal life that had taken a toll and really changed me as a person in negative ways. So when I came back, I kind of came with a mindset of, I would say, where I was shutting things out. Like I was really not trying to open up the discussion anymore. I was done with it. But sure enough, I really liked the dynamic. I really liked the jokes. And, from what was essentially a very small channel, really, all things considered, became a channel that even got mentioned on another channel. Was it, I believe, is it Comics and Diversity? I think there's a Diversity in Comics. I don't know which
Diversity in Comics, yeah, and that's another great channel. I mean, that guy's a former Marine. He never shows himself, but he does talk. I mean, some of the, he comes out with videos quite quickly. It's unbelievable the content he does. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but especially with him, and there was like a whole drama and debate, and people trying to do like character assassination. What I was seeing was like callbacks to what was happening during Gamergate, and again, that will come up again in the discussion in a little bit, and you'll see the reasons why. But they really blew up. They started putting out a lot of the short videos, and I noticed those were the videos that were getting a lot of traction. The Star Wars ones were really starting to wake people's eyes up, and they always say something like, I don't know how the old saying goes, but it's like, if you can change one person's life for the better, then you really made a difference. So I feel like the guys really accomplished that goal, and 100% more than that. Obviously, like they probably didn't change one person's mind alone. They probably changed numerous, and like more than I could ever count. In one sitting.
Yeah. Well, but, they started out kind of as a critique of pop culture. I mean, Jeff, he does it, introduce the show as the epitome of pop culture.
It still does.
And they still do. But somewhere along the line, they're like, griping's only so effective.
Mm.
So if you're not going to produce content outside of YouTube, it's like now they're taking it to the next level. They've gotten a show that's popular. It's starting to grow in popularity. When they gripe about something, they have a list. There is an argument there. It's not, hey, I don't like it, it must suck. It's, here's what's missing. Here's, the Last Jedi. If you listen to that, yes, about the last third, they get a name calling and stuff like that, and that does happen a lot on the fan book page and the comments too. But
Oh,
much
I'm
of
guilty.
their critique of these movies is in the movie making itself, is in within the context of the Star Wars universe. Let's talk about Star Wars in particular. They crap on DC. I know there's a lot of comments about, hey, they're Marvel fanboys, but they're quick to say, they all don't like Doctor Strange. Some of them don't like the third Thor movie. Jeff has even said, hey, I saw it once. I don't need to see it again. I don't really like this comedic line. I didn't know where it was going. Thor 2 was horrible. So there are certain expectations, and maybe they flavor Marvel a little bit more than DC, but it's not like these DC movies are killing it. Now I know Batman vs Superman still made brought in like $890 million, and it was more liked outside of the U.S. I get it, but when you see DC stumbling, it's not just WCBS saying, "Well, we have to crap on this." It's same with Star Wars. And what I think has happened over the last couple of months is the formula gelled. So this started as kind of a whim. Let's get together. Let's have some fun. If you listen to the early episodes, you also have Brian Callahan, who's not on the T-shirt. Certain things just kind of naturally happen. Brian wasn't invited back. Joel moved away. So some things were very organic in how they came about. Nick came along. I think Loudy came in like episode 35 or something like that. I do miss Loudy, Phil, and Dan, I will admit. But it also depends on the topic. And this is part of why I listened to Ring Rust, which is kind of floating around. Is it dead? Is it not dead? Is it going to get rebooted? No one seems to know. Part of the problem is wrestling right now sucks, and they don't really want to talk about how bad it is. They're kind of sick of that. So it might be one of these things, if wrestling gets better, they'll be back. But I like, Kendo started on Ring Rust, right? He has a passion for wrestling. He has the knowledge as well. It's not just a passion. I mean, I have a passion for a lot of these things. I didn't see Star Wars 8,000 times. Yes, I was 9 years old in 77 when it came out. I didn't see it till 1981, I guess it was, or late 80. I forget when. It was after Empire. My dates are very skewed because I saw them at Fort Belvoir. So usually they've played in regular theaters before I see it. I had Empire slightly spoiled for me, where someone said that Darth Vader tells Luke he's his dad, but then it became the big question: was it his dad? And so I don't remember exactly. I know where I was, but I don't remember what year. And we were only in Fort Belvoir from about August of '79 to August of '81 before we moved to Fort Ritchie. So somewhere in those 2 years is when I saw these movies. But anyway, I digress. The whole point being, I had certain. I wouldn't say expectations, but desires to see what 1, 2, 3 would do, 7, 8, 9, and the like. But it's not, hey, I don't like this movie because if you listen to me talk about the prequels, I didn't like what George was doing, but I'm like, okay, once I accepted, okay, here's what he's trying to accomplish, then I critiqued it in that context. And it was like, well, but you have terrible acting. And I know they talk about the CGI. What's really interesting is a lot of that is not CGI. And the fact that it's computer generated, what it is digitized. And so there are a crap ton of miniature sets in those prequels, but because they digitized them and then put them on a green screen, they feel flat. And that is actually what people are reacting to. Not the lack of resolution or the lack of creativity, but once you scan it and then put it on another 2D surface, the three-dimensionality is really lost. And that's really what people don't understand what they're seeing. That's the problem. And I like about WCBS's discussions is sometimes I don't like it because, but sometimes there is a, hey, I don't like it because these things were not consistent. The new Disney movies are not consistent with George. I understand he did a lot of retconning in the prequels, and I flame him for it. But I'm like, if you're going to say, hey, we're going to undo the prequel stupidity, you cannot retcon more. You cannot violate the rules of the universe that's created in. Yes, I want to see Star Wars go in a new direction. No, it doesn't have to be yet another Skywalker, but you have to stay consistent with the rules of the universe created by Lucas. And when you don't, as in most of The Last Jedi, then that's going to get people to really be irritated. And that's the biggest reason why they didn't like the movie, it was because of what it did. Forget the SJW stuff. Forget all of the political stuff. The biggest reason, if you listen to Jeff and Nick, especially Jeff and Nick, because they're really more into movie making than everybody else, it's you were not consistent with the rules of the universe as created by Lucas. You can do whatever you want as long as you stay within those rules. Then, secondarily, we can talk politics and all that other crap. But when you violate those rules, the suspension of disbelief of the expectation of that audience and universe, it's very different in Star Trek. It's very different in Babylon 5. But if you stay consistent, it works. And Babylon 5 is a great example. Reboot. I mean, I loved I was a huge fan. But I had the trading cards. Anytime, even into the early 80s, anytime about Battlestar Galactica show came on, I never realized it was only one season because they very cleverly re-edited these things together. But the reboot, yes, they replaced some men with women, but they did not make a big deal about it, and they were consistent, and they treated the original material with respect the entire time, and it worked.
Exactly. Here's something that I actually wanted to bring up now that we're going to essentially get into our topic of today, which is I guess we call it the continuation of the backlash or
right.
fallout of the backlash.
So let's bring that up. So let me kind of set it, and I'll let you rant. So we have a backlash started. We touched on this last week. And since then, the audience score and the professional rating has gone down. So
yeah.
So go ahead, give your 2 cents.
Well, there's actually something that I want to get out of the way before we continue further, and it's this whole notion that all the fans are sexist, misogynistic. I'm not going to touch upon the alt-right or the racism or whatever, but that we're sexist and we're misogynistic. We cannot handle strong female roles. We are afraid of a dominant female. See, here's the problem with that. If you're saying this, if you're saying the problem is that we're straight men who have a problem with powerful women, you're basically your argument makes no sense, because as straight men, I think the idea of a strong, powerful woman would be kind of very alluring, very exotic, very sexy, if you will. I mean, just look at if we have to throw an example. Look at a powerful woman like Wonder Woman. Despite the fact that she is an Amazonian, very, athletic, very like a warrior's built type of body type of woman, she still has a certain level of femininity to her. And men, straight men in particular, will find that very attractive. If anything, it's something that will make us want to even learn more about this character, more about this. Like, we look at it like how you look at an exotic creature. You look at something of beauty and you want to know more of it. You want to gaze at it. Like when you look at the sky sometimes and it's a beautiful day, you look at it with awe and wonder. So if there's this notion that we're sexist, I mean, don't you think that would kind of go contradictory to what we would want to see? I'm pretty sure if Rey was this woman that had a certain level of beauty to her, and not necessarily saying like beauty in terms of physical beauty, but beauty in terms of a sense of grace, a sense of elegance to her, I'm pretty sure more people will find her much more alluring, much more unique, much more exotic. This whole, I have to be this angry female, here's my pouting face, I have to be very rigid in my stances. It just kind of comes off as very, I have no idea what I'm trying to get at. Again, the booze talking. I guess robotic would be the right word.
Well,
like it
right. Yeah, I mean, she comes off. I mean, they make the joke on, and I've made the joke before. She comes off like a 14-year-old boy. I mean, it's as opposed to a strong woman. What they've created is a whimpering boy, and I understand not every woman has a double D chest. I get that, but
doesn't have to really.
Really, well, we've had strong women in the past. I mean, look at Linda Hamilton, and I think I said Linda Hamilton before, and for Wonder Woman, that's Linda Carter. But look at Linda Hamilton in Terminator. In the
Yeah.
first Terminator movie, and she doesn't have a huge, she's not, a she's an okay looking woman. She's not supermodel quality. She's short. She doesn't have very big boobs. But in the first one, she is the stereotypical helpless waif, right? She has to have a protector, and she doesn't realize she's in danger. In the second movie, they even have a montage. They show her doing chin-ups on purpose. Now, does she have huge rippling muscles like compared to Arnold? No. She has a decent physique based on a woman's ability to gain muscle, which is significantly less than a man. Your stereotypical. You take your typical weakest man and you train him, and you take a strong woman who's not on male growth hormone injections or steroid injections or anything like that. The guy's going to be stronger. It's just biology. It has nothing to do with preference, sexism. It's simple biology. The testosterone levels are not there. Now, obviously, there are exceptions. There are some strong women who, without taking injections, who are incredibly strong, who could beat me to a pulp. I get it. But they're talking in general. And in that movie, you believe, because of training that Linda did and things, you really believe she can do a lot of things she's doing. Now, I know I harp on Gal. You guys, in fact, Kendo and Jeff call her Gal Gadot. They did on Saturday. But if you compare her arms and lats and delts to Linda Hamilton in Terminator 2, you can understand my God, this woman's too skinny, and I don't believe it. It's the physique level, and I'm not expecting a woman to have 18-inch biceps. I get it. It's not going to happen.
We don't need a female Hulk Hogan.
It's going to be look more like 12 at most. I'm about, well, I've lost some because I got ill, but at one point I was about 15 this year. So I know, in The Rock is what, 28 or something insane. But that's not a typical man. He's atypical, right? He has a higher testosterone level and ability to a mesomorph, what they call it. And Ripley is another great example. You don't have to have a woman with a double D chest before people, but there is a certain strength and elegance about both those characters. Now, they're not, say, Angelina Jolie as Tomb Raider level elegance, but there is a certain sense of femininity when you look at them. You believe you're looking at a strong woman, not a 13-year-old boy, which is what, Daisy Ridley, outside of being Rey, does not look so I don't even know if hermaphrodite's correct.
I think you meant androgynous, like when you can't tell
You're correct, yes.
a man or woman.
So they go look at her, and I haven't seen Murder on the Orient Express. I've seen some clips, I've seen some pictures. She looks more effeminate. As Rey, they purposely have her look more androgynous, and that is part of the problem. Princess Leia had a feminine side. Now, I understand Return of the Jedi, and I've been over this before, the slave costume only works because of the first two movies. You can yell and scream sexism all you want, but it only works as a plot device because of who she is. Okay? It only works because she's a strong female, and the whole point is humiliation. You can say that in the prequels, Natalie Portman, I can't remember if it's the second one. Is it the second one? I think it's the second one where they come out into that big arena and her midriff is showing and she has a very tight top on. You can you can very rightfully say that's a bit gratuitous. But much of her costuming in those movies is to show her, especially when she's queen, is to show this idea of grandeur. This is why her costumes change in every freaking scene. That's the whole point. If you go and look at, if anybody denies that, go to North Carolina, go to Asheville, and visit the Biltmore Estate, and look at the women's schedule for a day, and you will see they have a breakfast outfit, they have a mid-morning outfit. If they're going to go automobiling, they have a different outfit. They have a tea outfit. They have a lunch outfit. They have a mid-afternoon outfit. They have a pre-dinner outfit. They have a dinner outfit. They have a post-dinner outfit. It's insane. But so take that to a monarchy level, and it's exactly what you get out of the prequels, and it's exactly what should happen.
Exactly. And I don't know why this idea gets lost on a lot of people. I don't know if it's the sense of they are just not grasping it because they can't grasp it, or they're just not grasping it because they don't want to grasp it. It's something that we see a lot. And actually, I'm gonna tie that into our topic, our main topic, which is basically the backlash and you name it, almost all these publications trying to blame someone for the terrible rating on Rotten Tomatoes. And right now, as of this very moment, I will let everybody know exactly where we stand on that. So give me exactly.
Well, why don't you go over what some of the topics that they're blaming on? You know, whose fault is it?
So we've had, I kid you not, I saw the Vanity Fair one. Indirectly, they have blamed Trump, saying these MAGA-esque fans. So the fans have been blamed. Trump has been blamed indirectly. I think I don't know if Russians have been blamed, but I know hackers have been blamed. Bots, the alt-right, and oddly enough, the craziest one of them all is George Lucas, of all things. The man who essentially has nothing to do with the new trilogy. I mean, I don't know if he has. I doubt he has anything to do with it at all, other than probably cast his opinions on the matter. So everything in there that they could throw out there to explain these horrible, horrible scores, which, oh, goddamn this slow ass internet. But I'll tell you right now, it's, let's see, as of right now, sitting at 92% in the tomato meter, which I'm guessing is the critic score.
Yep.
And gee, I wonder why. Well, actually, that has decreased, ladies and gentlemen. I believe it was as high as like 96 at one point.
Yep.
So that has actually decreased. So take that as you will. And the audience score, which I don't remember what was the highest I saw it initially, but I think it was at 60 at one point, and is now all the way down to 53%.
Right. Well, when I started keeping track of it, I think it was like 65. Somewhere in all my emails, I actually have every single image when it's dropped, and the big thing that kind of gets me is that the critic score has gone down, and that kind of floors me. I would have thought all the critical reviews were in by now.
Well, this is what I'm thinking, and this really is just like kind of basic math in play here. If we're considering the percentage as an average score, right, then that means that there had to have been some critic who actually gave enough critics that actually gave this movie really bad reviews, like something very low, like from a scale from 1 to 10, they had to have given something really low to skew it from a high 90 to a low 90. So we'll make that as we will. Do you want to say that these were the outliers? These are the people that didn't enjoy it because they are the ones that are not getting it? Or, almost starting to sound a little bit like Rick and Morty if we really start looking into it, dissecting it a little further. If anything, you can actually make parallels between the fan base and what's going on right now with I guess the white knights of this movie.
Right.
And everything, going back to the whole audience score, dropping to 53, which I believe at this point is a record low for Star Wars.
Yep. It is below the prequels for the audience side. And, you know, that was one of the things somebody posted in the in the Facebook about George. It was a video about, and I watched the video, but I don't remember if they gave a link to the discussion. But basically, it's like everything but Rian Johnson. It's like we've blamed the fans. It was right wing. It was butthurt fans about, And here's the thing too. I have read I don't know how many reviews on both Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic and several other places about what people don't like. There are a handful of it didn't do what I expected. It was too, this is the critique of the prequels I keep hearing is it was too different and that Force Awakens was too similar. I don't know where this straw man got created, but I think it's complete and total bullcrap. Because I didn't like the prequels, not because they were too similar to me, not too different, and they echoed the links between that and the original trilogy were way too strong. I've said this multiple times. And The Force Awakens was just A New Hope with a little sprinkling of Empire Strikes Back. When I first saw the first full trailer for the new movie, I said Empire with a little bit of Jedi. And what did we get? We got a little bit of Jedi and Empire backwards. And and people are starting to see that. And so this whole thing of people don't want anything different is garbage. You have to be consistent with the universe itself. The Metachlorians and Jar Jar Binks were the two biggest things people complained about episode 1. It was better with the Force being a mystic realization and not some stupid symbiotic relationship. And Jar Jar was too much comedy relief. This was, by the time we got to episode 1, there was too much of a belief that the Star Wars was marketing for little kids. You know what? That is wrong. I was there in 77. I loved it as a 9-year-old, but it was not marketed to me until the toys came out that Christmas. And even then, they didn't have enough. I got most of my toys in 78. And, it was the movie itself was marketed between, and not until we get to Return of the Jedi do we have a concept that it might be a kid's movie, and it's really the Ewok Adventures that cement the deal. And Empire is by no way a kid's movie. Star Wars itself, A New Hope, is in no way a kid's movie. Kids may like it, but it is not marketed to kids. It was marketed at young, adult, male, teens. This is a 13 to 21-year-old target demographic. It was the people who like to go to the Saturday matinees and see a swashbuckling adventure, Sinbad and the whatever. And I love those as a 10, 12, 13-year-old. I love those Sinbad movies. The claymation and all that, the stop motion stuff, it's great. And that's the beginning of the target audience until early 20s when people started to look too old for this kid stuff. Empire was more of a 15 to 25-year-old. And then we got the stupid freaking Ewoks and then Return of the Jedi. But again, don't forget, they're carnivores. They hunt. They kill people and eat them. Some of them get killed and stomped. There's no way. This is not Bambi with the mother dying off screen. In the Star Wars universe, Bambi's mother dies on screen. She probably gets decapitated and the blood squirts everywhere. Right? It's not a Quentin Tarantino movie, but it's not a G-rated movie. This is part of the things that WCBS has brought up multiple times, Jeff in particular. It was PG. In part, why we got a PG-13 movie was because of the violence in these movies. If PG-13 would have existed in 77, every single movie would have been PG-13.
Well, let's go a step further. We were just talking about one of the more iconic scenes and one of the more iconic moments in Star Wars. Slave Princess Leia in the slave outfit.
Right.
You think that was targeted to kids?
No. And again, you can argue the sexualization of that whole thing, but again, it doesn't work if she's not a powerful female. If she's not a powerful female, she's just another bimbo in a costume.
Exactly. She would be another background character with the just wearing a damn slave. It might not even been the same outfit, because if you notice, even for an outfit that is considered a slave outfit, there's a certain level of elegance and a certain level of grandeur to it.
Right.
It almost seems like the type of thing that you would make somebody of royalty or high status wear, even if it is meant to be demeaning. Right. These are the little, and then again, you got to give credit to George Lucas and some of the other people that worked on the original trilogy. They knew what they were doing. They were there were little subtleties, little things that people could pick up on.
Right.
I will definitely argue that's one of them. Like, hey, look, it has a certain elegant design to it, because if they really wanted to demean Leia, they could have just dressed up in rags and you could have had probably the same effect or different effect. We'll never know. But
I think it'd been a different effect, you know,
probably a different effect.
because if you dress her as a pauper, you miss because the slave outfit. You're right. It has a certain amount of elegance to it. I mean, this is a beaten to death trope, but go look at the movie Red Sonja. Now, Brigitte Nielsen, tall. I think they've dyed her hair red. I don't know what her natural hair color is. She's pretty good looking, at least back in the 80s. She has a certain elegance about her, but she's not like, say, Elle Macpherson elegance in a supermodel. But her outfit in Red Sonja, especially for some of the fighting scenes, is not too dissimilar to what Carrie Fisher wore in the slave outfit in Return of the Jedi. And I know there's this, what I said, the beaten to death trope is that women in fantasy have this ridiculous armor. But as I said before, go watch Hercules, go watch Legend of the Seeker. You know what? They have just as ridiculous armor. These guys have to have their shirt off for 85% of the time. They have nice pecs, good stomach, good shoulder development, and I get it. But those costumes work because they have a functionality about them. And in many ways, the armor you would be wearing is going to encumber your fighting of the style that they utilize with the swords. It's very different if you've got a crossbow or something like that.
Exactly.
Plate mail is very good at protecting you, but it is it has a sense of clumsiness. It's not like you can fall down and can't get up. I've seen demonstrations of people in full plate who can do dive forward rolls and pop right back up. But you do lose mobility. You do lose. And the main thing you lose with a full plate is your peripheral vision is very, very compromised. Go put a helmet on with just slits for eyes and see how much you can see around. So if you want to have full visualization, you're not going to be wearing some of that stuff. And unless it's skin tight, say like a ninja outfit. But the thing is that cloth, when it comes to a blade, it might as well be bare skin. Okay?
Exactly.
And I know Anna Sarkeesian and others have argued, and I get it. I understand there's a bit of a sexism about it. I agree with that sentiment. But it's not like, how can we get away with showing how much, I've seen a lot of interviews with people about the Return of the Jedi. No one that I've seen is like, oh my goodness, how can we get Princess Carrie Fisher in a bikini? And she did a photo shoot at the ocean in that outfit multiple times. If you want to see, if you really are hard up to see Carrie Fisher and her all together, she's not nude, but go watch A Man with One Red Shoe, which was late 80s, early 90s. She's in her underwear in that, in a scene in that. Far more revealing than that slave outfit. And, I mean, it's within context. It's not like she's running around in her underwear just because that's what the script called. Both those instances, my whole point is both those instances are consistent with the context. There are times in some of these, like Beastmaster and others, you may have, Airplane, I think, parried this the best. When in the scene where everybody goes nuts because they're going to crash, all of a sudden a woman with a big chest jumps out without a top, bounces her boobs up and down, and then runs off. It's out of context. Right. It's out of context, but that's the whole point. Right? You don't ever see that character again. They don't even show her face. I don't even know who it is. But that's the whole point, is to kind of shock you. And so even that has a context, even though it's out of context. But those elements only work because of her background. If she, no one complains, at least that I know of, that the woman who dances around is the first slave who gets, drops into the pit with that big monster whose name escapes me. She dies, and that's how C-3PO knows that there's a pit there. No one complains. She's actually, when she's dancing around, if you freeze frame it, that side view, you can see a heck of a lot more of her than you can ever of Carrie. And no one ever complains about her. It's only Carrie, and it's only now. No one, I mean, I know they didn't release a sex slave, Leia. And I get it. That's a bit pushing the envelope a little too far. But the only reason that outfit works is because of her background in the first two movies. A strong leader in the first one, immediately takes charge of her own rescue. In the second one, she's on the run, but she's not a damsel in distress, right? I don't trust Lando. She immediately gets all over Lando about stuff. She's the one that's really in his face, and Han is kind of like, hey, this is my friend here, She doesn't buy it. She's suspicious from the start, and that's totally consistent with her character. And the whole point is she has to grow to love a scoundrel, just as the scoundrel has to grow to love her. And that's the whole point of Empire with those two. That's enough. I've said that a zillion times.
Well, actually, now that we mentioned Leia, just to kill basically, and I'll make my peace with the Leia argument here. I do recall when I watched. Well, that was episodes. That was Empire Strikes Back with Jabba the Hutt and the Leia outfit, the slave Leia.
No, that's Return of the Jedi.
The Jedi. Okay. I'm sorry. Like I said, I haven't watched the original trilogy since I was a kid. So if I get the events wrong or I misquote something, ladies and gentlemen, don't get upset at me. We'll say something in the end about that this episode, but that's for later. But I do remember something where Jabba said something about to Leia, where he says, "I will make you submit to me." Now, I don't know if that is correct or he said it in a different. I'm misquoting it, whatever the case may be. But I do recall him saying something along those lines, like, you're going to submit to me, as if to say, I recognized you see yourself, or you feel you are, or maybe you are even the strong, powerful person, the strong-willed woman. But I'm going to break all that, and you're not going to have any will of your own. I think in that line alone, or at least if it was hinted at, it basically tells you everything you need to know right there. Not only who he is in terms of that relationship between him and her, him being the obvious villain, an obstacle for her, the antagonist, if you will, but also, just how much he recognizes her abilities, her strength, her courage, her determination, her strong will, if you will. So this is what has happened here, and this is what I think is really the crux of the issue. Is, we've in the past we've used to always criticize the like these parental groups, the hardcore Christian groups, like the very, I guess you could say, retentive groups that are always about, hey, let's censor this because this is bad for the children, or this is teaching immoral practices. So we had the other side of the spectrum, which probably was lying in wait, waiting for their turn to strike. And I think that's really what it came down to. Who said, well, oh no, this is immoral because it demeans women. As if to basically, all they really did was take the previous argument that was before it. Oh, this is bad because it teaches immorals. It teaches kids the wrong thing. It teaches men the wrong idea. And they just turn it around and say, oh, this is immoral because... And you'll notice how the arguments are very similar. The only difference is either the way they say it or the victims that they'll use. It's kind of a weird thing and goes back to a very, very well-known saying, how even the devil will quote the scriptures to suit his needs. So that's essentially what we have here. You have a group of people that are willing to die on this hill for this movie, who are quoting every verse they can think of, verses that they would never even quote in their lifetime to begin with. And I'm not talking about biblical verses, but I'm talking about verses like arguments, verses like points, whatever the case may be, whatever way you will. Sorry, it's the alcohol trying to take over again. I had him the shot. And they are trying to twist their narrative in a direction where they have control of it. So it's not an issue to me. To me, I really feel that's what it is. It's that they want to be in control of the narrative. And when they see all of a sudden that almost half the audience, essentially at this point, I'm just going to say half the audience, because that's really, what, 3%? Not that big where I could say it's less than half the audience. Half the audience has already said, well, we're not buying this bullshit. In fact, you're making the prequels of everything that we used to hate before look better by comparison.
Right. More original. I mean, forget the way it's shot. Forget all of the crappy effects. But they had their own story to tell. They had echoes of the original trilogy. But when you're just blatant ripping off the original trilogy, and there are minor mistakes in the prequels. I mean, yes, George Lucas had to redo the conversation between Vader and the Emperor in Empire Strikes Back on the release because of things he did in the prequels that made that not work. But those are minor compared to the rewrites of history and the universe we're getting with, especially The Last Jedi. I mean, it's amazing that I'm semi-defending the prequels because I saw one in theaters and hated all of them. And I hated them when they came out, not years later where Disney was ginning up. I'm still convinced Disney was behind all of a sudden. People crap on the prequels like crazy. And then George sold it. It is amazing. Those movies were somewhat like, they were kind of lampooned a little bit, but they were not hated anywhere near they were a couple years before George sold the whole thing. I mean, go look at Rotten Tomatoes. I said it last week. 900 some odd thousand votes for the first one, like 1.1 or 1.2 million for the second one, 33 million for the third one. I don't know if any other movie has that many people casting a vote against it. That is your bot. That is your ginned up fake downgrade as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Not what we see now. I mean, they're blaming everybody but themselves for the attitude that the audience has. And I don't know. I know somebody claimed responsibility, but Rotten Tomatoes has come out and said, nope, we've looked at things. What's interesting is the only thing out of the ordinary, you can put that in air quotes if you want, is people are leaving written reviews. They're not just clicking, 2 out of 10 and saying submit. And some people I have read positive and negative reviews, and most of the positives are it's the best movie since Empire. It reestablishes the universe. It corrects stuff with TFA, although they never give specifics. It's almost like it's copy and paste. But you start reading those. I mean, there are people that said, yeah, I didn't like it because it sucks, and that's it. But I have read reviews that had 5 or 6 or 7 paragraphs. And I don't mean like a sentence or two. I mean 5 or 6 sentences each of all of the things that were a problem, and they had nothing to do with opinion. It all had to do with storytelling, character development, consistency, feel, tone, attitude, not I don't like it because Ryan Johnson is a cuck. It's not, and that's how it's being portrayed in the media, but that is not reality.
Well, it's not. Essentially, what the media is doing right now, especially, and this is where I was mentioning Gamergate earlier, is something similar to what happened during Gamergate. Well, it wasn't really Gamergate just yet, but after the whole Mundane Bat incident. And as an aside, I remember you posted, was it a link up to that video? And even Jeff talked about it on the main show for a little bit. But what happened to this guy? This was the guy that was not afraid at one point to criticize Anita Sarkeesian. And I remember he did a video where he's like, guys, I give up. I just can't fight someone like this. It's just too big. And then immediately he's like, you know what? And he came out with a video. He's like, you know what? I was wrong. Can't let someone like this win. I have to go down fighting type of thing. And he fought. And, he was essentially the power. He was there when the whole Zoe Quinn incident happened. And I'm not trying to make this about him. But the fact that he put out a video saying, I feel like, first of all, he put out a video from what I understand, in his own words, saying how much he hated how much he hated the movie. And then he puts out a follow-up video saying, how I feel somewhat partially responsible for its failure amongst fans. Like I don't feel responsible, but I feel partially responsible. And I'm like thinking to myself, this is essentially what I feel must be going through the minds of a lot of these people who are white knighting, and they feel like if they're criticizing the movie, they've led to part of its failure. And the reality is, no, you're just one person. Even if you were to inflate a million minds, I don't think a million minds are gonna just hate it just because you do. But then again, I've been wrong before, so what's to say about that? I don't really want to digress too much into that. But what happened really was with Gamergate was how at one point when the gamers fought back. and they basically said, no, this is bullshit. This isn't about sexism. It's about a woman who got her way somehow, got favorable for reviews for a game that isn't really even a game, and now it came to light that she was lying about them. She DMCA'd a guy, Matt, and the powder kick started, basically to silence him. And what we found later was like there was a coordinated effort by the game's journalists, called Game Journals Pros, I believe, to essentially launch an attack on the audience, attack on gamers, saying that the gamers are dead. That was essentially what their articles were. Gamers are dead. Gamers are dead. Gamers are dead. And what was their whole argument is that gamers have become sexist, they become misogynistic, racists, and this is why they're dead, because they're a culture that blah, blah, blah. The new culture is a progressive culture, blah, blah, blah. Basically trying to say, no, we are the narrative. You submit to it. I wonder where we heard that before. So we're kind of I'm starting to see that again. They're trying to control the narrative as if to say, no. It's the fans' fault. It's the fans' fault. The fans just don't know how to appreciate something. The fans don't know how to think for themselves. We have to do the thinking for you. I'm surprised they haven't actually put out an article saying Star Wars fans are dead, which probably would have actually, if they had, probably proved my point even further. Because I feel like it's almost a coordinated attack. Like, if you think about it, they've done this before. I mean, we've seen this happen before. Like, not that recent. I mean, not that long ago, really. If you want to talk about like the election and with the Russians, like what weren't they blaming on the Russians every week, or not even every week, every hour at one point? Like, oh, the election went wrong because of the Russians. Oh, they're spying because of the Russians. Like, it was ridiculous. And that's what we're starting to see now. It almost feels like all these journalists, and again, there's documentation of it. There were emails that were spilled during Gamergate, leaked, showing how the journalists were exchanging notes with one another. Okay, we're gonna this journalist from maybe AGN, and this journalist from Kotaku, they were gonna launch this article at this hour. Another journalist was gonna launch this bomb on this next hour, whatever the case. We're starting to see a little bit of that with these coordinated attacks, and I feel like they're trying to. This is their damage control, but it's not working. And again, the same thing that happened with Game Journals Pros. You can't control an audience that has already essentially woken up to the truth. They will fight you back. And the only advice I can give these journalists, if we may even call them that, I will call them more appropriate title, these bunk shooters, if we will. I forgot where I got that reference from. These bunk shooters, is that you really rethink what it is you're going to write next, because it's only a few of you compared to many fans. And at the end of the day, you have more to lose in terms of your careers. And I'm not saying that they're going to do anything hasty now, but in terms of like what the backlash means for the movie, we will only see what we will see what will be the result of that in the next coming days. I mean, Christmas is Monday, so who knows what the final box office figures will be for the Last Jedi this weekend. We'll find out soon enough. But for the journalists, I give this one word of advice: careful how you want to launch your attacks, because the audience you're aiming your attacks at are not stupid. They're not going to yield. They're not going to yield. God, I got to stop drinking. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. It's the alcohol. It really is. Oh, man. But, yeah, careful with these coordinated attacks, because the audience is aware of what you're doing. And they will not be afraid to call you out on your bullshit. And you can only disable comments in your forums for so long before you yourself start shooting yourselves in the foot. So I think that's basically my piece on that. I don't know if you want to add any more to what I just said.
Well, yeah, I've even posted on Facebook in my general chat, and I actually had a friend of mine who was kind of more or less saying, "Hey, how come you're talking crap about this movie again?" I'm like, I'm not saying anything about the movie. I haven't seen it. I crapped on the Force Awakens because I saw it on the 24th of December. Rogue One I crapped on for months before I saw it. I did 2 videos and never saw it. But I'm finding too much entertainment, almost like verification, watching the reaction to the audience reaction, and the proof is going to be in the second weekend box office. Last week, I mean, technically, they talk about it brought in more and blah blah blah, but it opened 2 days earlier in most of the world before in the States. So not just because Japan is 12 hours ahead. In Europe, it opened 2 days before. It opened on Tuesday. So really, they're counting. It's really 7 days they're counting as the opening weekend, and that number is really skewed. And Kendo brought it up where it's like 15 million a day off The Force Awakens. It's 42% off The Force Awakens first week. That's fine. We expected a drop. But this, when we get to Monday or Tuesday of next week, so probably more like Tuesday because Christmas is on a Monday.
Exactly.
I know there's already probably articles already written blaming the holiday weekend. Because I am expecting a minimum of a 50% drop week to week, and that's where if this week is like. I don't know what the Force Awakens drop between its opening weekend and its closing weekend. But let's say it's second week in theaters. I don't know what that drop was. I'm sure it dropped some. But let's say the Force Awakens dropped 30%. I don't know what it is, but let's just say it's 30%. If The Last Jedi drops 60 or 70% in its own, not relative to the Force Awakens, that validates to me what we see in Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic. Because people aren't seeing it because of the word of mouth's getting out, and they're like, yeah, forget it, I have other things to do. And people who love The Force Awakens and had to see it 6 times the first couple of weeks, they're not going back. If 47% of the audience really doesn't like it, they're not seeing it a second time. And you should see a 60 or greater percentage drop week to week contained in its own self. And that, to me, now granted, if it barely drops or it drops about the same much as heck, even if it drops twice as much as The Force Awakens, yeah, maybe this is a little ginned up. Maybe this is really only 25% of the people who are pissed off about it, and they're out there botting and doubling the numbers. But if it drops something like what we saw with Batman versus Superman, or what we saw with Suicide Squad last year, in a Batman vs Superman, I think that was last year as well, wasn't it? I think it was last year. Or even the drop, because the opposite is Justice League, which was panned by the critics, but has a 75% approval rating by the audience. Yes, it had a drop, but it wasn't as big as Batman v Superman. It wasn't what we saw with Man of Steel. So. Wonder Woman did very well. And people talk about it, it did not do as much as Batman vs Superman, but even in constant dollars. But that's still the biggest one, almost 900 million. But that's where the proof will be. If next week, this coming weekend, we get to Tuesday, Wednesday next week, and we're looking at the biggest drop in Star Wars history. Let's just forget everything else. Let's say it's the biggest week 2 drop in Star Wars history. In my mind, I don't care what the raw numbers are because they're already inflated because people were super pumped because of Force Awakens. And let's just say the numbered episodes, forget Rogue One, that will be telling, and that will, in my view, justify and verify what we see in Rotten Tomatoes. And really, if that happens, if it's the biggest drop in Star Wars history, I think that's when the Disney execs wake up and say, what the freak is going on? Because we already have the Solo movie way over budget, basically doubled the budget. Marketing has been somewhat spent, so I don't really know if I want to double that too, because it's probably not as spent as the money for making the movie. But we have 5 directors fired by Kathleen Kennedy. We have a primary actor in the Solo movie who was so bad that they had an acting coach on set, not send him away for a month to learn on set. That is very telling. And at that point,
Yes,
Disney,
it is.
right? At that point, the Disney execs are going to sit up and say, "This is starting to affect our revenue." As long as revenue is not affected greatly, they don't give a crap. The more controversy, the better. If instead next week is only a 10% drop or 15%, I don't even care if it's a 20% drop. They can just pawn that off as long holiday weekend, right? Last year I think Christmas was like in the middle of the week or something like that. Not last year, 2 years ago. This year it's on a Monday. They can pass that off. We'll kind of float through in the new year. Let's see what mid-January looks like. But if it's a 50% or bigger drop, that will get their attention. Now, will they do anything? I don't know. But then it will be on their radar, and they'll be watching Kathleen like a hawk. But if it doesn't, they don't give a crap. They don't care if half the audience is never going to see a Star Wars movie. If the audience that does come sees it 15 times, they don't care. Because revenue will not be affected greatly. But until revenue is affected greatly, it's going to keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going. I mean, I got a message was sent to me through Facebook just yesterday, asking, hey, and they wanted to make fun of my video complaining about the Star Wars movies. Like, where's your video? I saw the WCBS video. Where's yours? I want to make fun of it. And I'm like, I'm not going to see the movie. I'm not going to pay to see the movie. I might, and I haven't torn in a movie in I don't know how many years. But just to appease the viewers of my channel, if you will, I will gladly find it. I will have the time this weekend. It'll be a minimum of Tuesday or Wednesday before I even have 2.5 hours to devote to watching anything. I might torrent it, and I'm admitting this freely. I don't know. Or if someone will buy my ticket, I will force myself to watch this movie so I can make a video that's educated. But based on all of what I've read and all of what I've heard, I don't know if I could say anything different. It's like, I agree with that, I agree with that, I agree. What's it going to be, a 5-minute video where I agree with all of the criticisms and just list them? I mean, that's kind of stupid. But it's an interesting request, I will say that. But, until there's a real negative impact on revenue, nothing's going to change. This is why Nick is like, go see The Disaster Artist. Go see Jumanji. Was it this weekend I think it comes out, or next weekend? I don't know about that movie actually to me looks interesting. I never saw the original. I saw parts of it. I understand sort of what happens. And yes, 85% of the reason is because Karen Gillan is in it. Not because of her outfit, because I've actually seen several movies she's been in. Just because I adore her. And you can call me sexist, I don't give a crap. Okay? She's a good actress and she's gorgeous. She's not a mediocre actress who's gorgeous. Okay? I don't see any Pamela Anderson movies. Heck, I hated the TV show she was, Barbed Wire or whatever the hell it was called. Eventually she became a character of herself, and I lost interest. But when she was on Tool's on, I liked her. I was watching because eye candy. She can't act worth a crap. This is why Wonder Woman is one of those movies. I'm like, Gal's gorgeous. I will admit it, but she can't act worth crap. So anyway, I'm tired of talking about Star Wars. We either got to take a break or wrap this up because I've got some bio needs to take care of. So let's see if we can wrap this up in the next 10 minutes. Is that fair? We've been going almost an hour and a half. My voice is almost shot. I am still getting over a cold, and I have talked way too much, and it hurts like you would not believe to talk.
I can imagine. I was going through that not that long ago, and I remember I missed a few episodes because of that. And the alcohol is starting to suddenly dissipate my body, like it's going away now. But this will change with this next sip, so just give me 1 second. Okay. I think the brain cells are starting to get lazy again. So let's finish this up. So the guys also were talking about like the year-end review. I was gonna go more into detail about it. Like I had this plan of also talking about 2017, things I liked, things I didn't like.
Well, go ahead. Let's just go into it. I mean, we talked a lot about CBS stuff, things that, how the channel grew and how the show has changed, what we like. So let's expand it to anything in entertainment over the next 10, 15 minutes. Let's talk about what you liked, what you didn't like.
All
Go
right.
for it.
So they talk about movies. Let's get that out of the way for real quick. Now, I couldn't come up with a list of 10 movies. Like, I was hoping to at least have seen 10 movies this year, so I could come up with a decent enough list. Sadly, I did not see a lot of the awesome movies that they were talking about. Baby Driver. I have not seen Kong Skull Island. Reasons for it, I'm not gonna get into too much. It was either because, it was either a financial thing. I had to calculate, what was a priority during that time. I probably just didn't have enough time. I probably forgot about it. I know Belko Experiment was one of those movies that was promoted early on this year. I wanted to see it. I was never had a chance to go to the theaters again, and a lot of it was because of my job. The amount of free days that I had available, I really couldn't do much with it because I had other responsibilities, that sort of thing. But for the movies that I did see, so I'm gonna go and actually this is with the exception of 1 and 2. The first 3 are in particular order. So number 5. This is actually a very interesting one in my end, and if you guys want to agree, disagree, say what the fuck is wrong with you, by all means, the comment section's down there. I will debate you, discuss with you. Hell, we can even take it over to Facebook so we can let the rest of the bullshitter audience and fans debate for themselves and see, whatever the case may be, if they want to join in. But number 5. This is not an honorable mention. This is number 5. I'm going to give the Lego Batman that spot. I actually saw this on Blu-ray. Originally, when it came out, it looked interesting. I had seen the Lego movie with my brother. We both liked it, enjoyed it. It wasn't really this kind of like, oh, hey, we're just trying to sell Legos to you type of movie, which, let's face it, that's part of the marketing. But I don't see the Legos really selling in stores the way you would think they would. Legos are fairly popular for the most part, but I'm not seeing anybody buying Legos like they used to back in the day. If anything, I see more adults that would probably buy them, but for like older classical sets, like say Ghostbusters, which I used to really enjoy looking as a kid, but they were too expensive to get. It was a pretty decent movie. It had a nice twist in terms of like the Joker and Batman dynamic, where the whole motivation for Joker's plan later on in the movie, without spoiling too much, was that Batman essentially told Joker off and said, "I don't need you. You mean nothing to me." And this really like just destroyed Joker to the point that he went to extremes to kind of get his attention. And I think that was kind of telling, because if you read one of my favorite Batman comics, The Dark Knight Returns, Frank Miller, one of the things was that in that universe, in that story, Joker goes catatonic because Batman just retired one day and he felt like he lost a piece of himself. So when Batman returned, the smile on Joker's face came back and he went back to his villainous ways. So it's a very interesting movie. Good special effects, nice little Easter eggs, nice little subtle jokes too. There were little jokes about Batman and Robin, for example, where Alfred says, Master Bruce, why is I think he said Master Dick at that point, why is Master Dick dressed like that? And you can understand what kind of joke they were trying to get at there. So, a very clever movie. I would definitely say give it a watch if you haven't watched it. I saw it in Blu-ray. I didn't see it upon release. So, there's that. Number 4, and this was actually recommended, I won't say recommended by Dustin, but it was brought up by Dustin. I remember in an early episode this year. And I shitted on this movie before it even came out, saying, anime, West Japanese anime adaptations never work in big screen. And it's Ghost in the Shell. I will say this: I have to eat shit because of this. It was actually a much better movie than expected. I don't know if by coincidence or not, but Scarlett Johansson's robotic acting actually fit the role of the. I think technically it would be an android. I think it is a robot built to look like a human, an android, with a human mind. The story for the most part, does do the original anime movie some justice. There are scenes that are basically fan service to the original movie. There's a nice flow to it. I mean, at times it can get a bit weird, like in terms of following what's going on, but it's not something that needs to beat over your head. I know there was like a lot of SJW nonsense. Even I kind of like got into it a little bit, not because of SJW reasons, but because I've seen adaptations of these movies before and how awful they are when they do their casting. But this is one of the few times where casting wasn't really that bad. I will say that much. I had to eat shit. It was a lot better than expected. It wasn't hammering in any type of like major political things. It just talking about who identity as a human being, and having this android question who she was. So overall, I thought it was much better than anticipated. So I give it a number 4 spot. Number 3, um, War for Planet of the Apes. Now I did see this movie in theaters. This is a little different. I saw this one in theaters. I personally enjoyed this movie, and I made a little joke with my brother about at the end of the movie in the theater. I'm like, great, how awesome is it? We saw a great retelling of the story of Moses, and that alone should probably spoil most of the movie for you if you have any idea what the story of Moses is. And I'm not talking about like just the beginning, when he was found by the he's found by the pharaoh, the queen, and everything like that. I really haven't seen much of the rest of the series, so I kind of essentially saw this one without really watching the second one. So I really kind of went into it blind. I had to have a lot of it explained to me, but they were nice. But it was still a nice movie nonetheless. It wasn't something like that spectacular, but it ended in a nice way. It had some feel good moments. It had some inspirational moments, and even had moments of where the characters you kind of felt some way towards the characters. It had redeemable moments for even some of the villains. Really, kind of a rare thing to see nowadays. Really, and well, I'm pretty sure number 2 and number 1 are very interchangeable. And the only reason why I say that is because I really don't know which I could say is my favorite movie at this point. So, remember how I constantly kept mentioning Logan has been my favorite movie, Brian?
Yep. Sorry, I was muted. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, like I've been talking to death how it was my favorite movie of the year. I felt it did everything right. It wasn't like the typical formulaic superhero movie. It was a movie of essentially coming to terms with life, one's mortality, death, and all these other things that were very strong themes for a movie that I could not see it working with anything other than an R rating. And then came a little movie that I had actually put on my watch list for a very long time, and this is the competition for number 1, and it's John Wick 2. And all I can say is the guys have talked about it to death on the main show from like the moment they have seen it. I watched it sometime during the Black Friday weekend. Actually, it was a couple days after Black Friday week. It was the week after. I sat down and watched one. It was a great movie. So much so that because I bought both of them at the same time, I immediately watched the second one. And all I can say is I have never seen anything more badass in my life in the last couple of years than John Wick. The man you send to kill the boogeyman, basically. The man who killed him, who kills a man with a pencil, a fucking pencil. I mean, I probably misquoted these jokes. These lines, but whatever. You know, the kill count, it wasn't gory for the sake of being gory. The violence felt pretty realistic. There were great action sequences, great moments of where you didn't know what was going to happen to the main character. Like moments that you were just outright root. Like there was not a moment where you could not help root for the guy. And I'm not talking about the first movie. I'm talking about the second movie. Like it was just straight from start to finish. This movie where you wanted to see the ending, and when we finally got to the ending, and the guys already spoiled it on main show, so I might as well just spoil it here. When all the cell phones are going on off, and essentially, this is the moment when you realize the target, the hunter, essentially the guy who was out for revenge, now is the prey all of a sudden. And as he's running away and the phones are ringing in the background, you can't help but think to yourself, oh my God, this guy has the entire world against him right now. How is he going to possibly survive? And you want to see a part three. You want to see this lead to some kind of conclusion. And we can only hope. And now that I know for certain that there's going to be a part three in a couple of years, I believe they said 2019, I am excited to see it. This is a movie that actually restored my faith in wanting to see movies again. Granted, a little bit late in the year, but it did the job. It made me have a little faith, a lot more faith in Keanu Reeves as an actor. I mean, he's done some great movies in the past. Then he has some flops, some duds, but God damn it, man! What an actor! What a movie! What a finish! That is basically it for me.
All right. Yeah, I tried to kind of. I don't even know if I saw 5 movies in the theater. I mean, I saw some movies this year. A lot of them were last year. I finally watched Batman vs Superman Ultimate Edition. I actually liked it better than what most people. But see, again, I went into it knowing what its faults were, so my expectations were very different. I think that's in part what happens with a lot of these movies. I have not seen Thor 3. I did see Doctor Strange, which I think technically was released last year. But here's what I will say about some of the movies I did see this year, and some of them in theaters. Wonder Woman, I didn't like it as a movie per se. There was some, to me, they made Wonder Woman way too weak, and not just because Gal is a stick figure. That's part of it. She should have been the star of this movie. She wasn't. It wasn't even the main character. The main character was actually Steve Trevor. Chris Pine carried the movie, and a lot of people, they were all, beating their chest saying, hey, a female-directed movie led by a female. And I'm like, no, it's a female-directed movie led by a man. Gal is she's not a supporting actress, but she's not the main, if you look at the main story itself and you throw her overboard, other than maybe one scene, it still works. And that's, granted, it is a very pivotal scene. She saves Steve Trevor from drowning. But other than that, it's all her. It's all him. And her, finding out that I think we should have, basically, I agree with Jeff in some ways that we really shouldn't have had her finding whatever, not Zeus, but whatever god she finds. The problem is, Ares. Because the problem was that was too kind of pushed. I really think if Ares kind of shows up and says, "You see, I had nothing to do with," because that was one of the things. Part of what kind of shattered her faith was Ares wasn't responsible for what was going on. He actually wanted the armistice, and so she got a different aspect of Ares. I think they should have left him alive. I think they should have had him say that and disappear. And then Steve Trevor still dies. She still gets pissed off. She still gets her powers from her anger, not her love. And we can move forward. But the biggest problem with that movie is it's set in the DCEU, which is garbage. It's set in World War I because of Captain America not being too long ago. My understanding is that was a script that Zack Snyder did years ago. They actually tried to get this movie off the ground several years ago. Patty Johnson may have made minor modifications, but it wasn't something she wrote, which is fine. I don't really, most of the time when the director and the writer are the same person, it's amazing how bad the movies turn out to be. So that's not too much of a worry for me. But I mean, it was a visually stunning movie. It's just again, and this is part of what we'll get to the BBC here in a moment, and I'm bending the rules here a little bit with the BBC as far as the natural chest. But I'm going to start the show, and maybe, especially when Kendra wasn't here, what the heck I'm talking about. By these strong women who don't look like bodybuilders, but who are strong, who I could believe in the role of Wonder Woman and not that toothpick. And these are beautiful women. These are not, these 8 out of, they're 8, 9, 10 out of 10s, not 4, 5, 6 out of 10s that happen to lift weights. So, that's a movie that would put in my I don't know what list because I don't watch enough movies to say here's my top 5. But I finally got around to watching Doctor Strange. I really liked that movie because it was very different. I didn't like the trope of the mentor who's supposedly whiter than snow but has a dark secret. I'm so over that. It's so overplayed. It's so humanistic and antagonistic in its beliefs. I know where it comes from. It's garbage. And I'm trying to stay. I mean, it's getting late, and I really got to wrap this up because I'm about to fall over.
No, go ahead.
And so some of those other movies I didn't see, but in many ways, to get the response from WCBS, like It Comes at Night, is one that was a huge disappointment. When I was on episode 100, I brought it up as one of my favorite moments of the year. To listen to, you can hear in Jeff and Nick's voice such disappointment. And even Dion starts to really get concerned that these guys are just calling, just shoot the crap. They need some counseling, I am eagerly wanting to see The Disaster Artist. I've seen the Room, and my son's already seen Disaster Artist. He hasn't seen The Room yet. There is a showing of The Room somewhere around here. Hopefully we get to go see. I would love to go. The two of us go. That would be awesome. It'd be a better movie experience than when he and I went and saw The Force Awakens. But a lot of what they, Kong Skull Island. I like monster movies, but not nearly as much as Dion. To me, it's just overplayed. The Mummy looked horrible from the trailer. It's like, I was over Tom Cruise in 1987. So for it to be 30 years later, I'm like, oh my God, I don't care. Let me see. Let me bring up my notes really quickly. I don't think I had anything else. The other thing that I had was another movie that I saw this year that was actually out last year. I finally did see Rogue One. People don't believe me, but I genuinely laughed so hard. I had cramps. I was laughing so hard at that movie because it wanted so much to be taken seriously. And I talked about this last week. I've seen a lot of great war movies, and Rogue One doesn't come close to some of the worst war movies I've ever seen. Go watch The Big Red One. Go watch Kelly's Heroes. Go watch Longest Day. Go watch Platoon. Go watch Full Metal Jacket. Go watch Hamburger Hill. Go watch what's the one from the 40s with John Wayne. It's actually during the war, but it was about stuff. It was the Flying Tigers, I think it's called. Go watch. Go watch those movies, and then watch something like Operation Petticoat, not the TV show, the movie. Blake Edwards. And it's a comedy of a war movie. And you watch those, you'll see where I'm coming from. And then watch Rogue One, and Rogue One will make you laugh so hard at how hard it's trying to be taken seriously. Go watch The Dirty Dozen or the second one. The first two were pretty good. After that, they got stupid. And forget the TV show. The TV show was garbage. You go watch those movies and then watch Rogue One. I am willing to guarantee you will laugh so hard at how cringeworthy it is. The setup, the dialogue, everything is forced. It's all garbage. But as a comedy, it works great. It is a spoof of a science fiction war movie. I mean, go watch them. The original trilogy had a lot of war in it. The second one, not so much. The first one did. The third one definitely had it. Fine, go watch Battlestar Galactica. If you want to see what war looks like in a sci-fi movie show, go watch that. Just watch the miniseries, then watch Rogue One again, and you'll understand how far off the mark it is. I still want to see the original cut. I still think Gareth Edwards probably made a much better movie than the garbage we got. The first trailer seems to imply that. I still want to see that movie. Most of that first trailer was cut out and reshot. There's no tension. All the characters are going to die, and that's stupid. They should have had somebody survive. Forget, well, how come they didn't show up in it? Yeah. They don't have to show up in the, Mon Mothma only shows up in the third movie, but she was alive the whole time, right? So don't give me that garbage. Well, then they don't show up. Forget it. You're not gonna fly with me. So that's kind of my wrap up. Is really, in many ways, this was a year of becoming a more involved WCBS fan I've done over 100 beer reviews this year alone. I think I've done about 30 supplement reviews this year. I've got more supplement reviews to edit, some more to shoot. Um, you know, to me, that's where my entertainment was in the becoming. You know, Jeff has said I'm kind of like the fifth Beatle when it comes to WCBS. Um, you know, in many ways, I am. This is why I was at their Christmas party. This is why I get invited to other things when my schedule allows, but I'm not directly a part of them. My channel's grown a little bit, especially in the last couple of months, which is great. I've gotten feedback on some features that I haven't done in over a year that I got to get off my lazy butt and do. So it's been, in my view, it's been a very interesting year in entertainment. Even though I'm not a big entertainment person, right? I don't see 30 movies a year. I don't like crowds. They drain the crap out of me. If I go to a full movie, I'm exhausted. If I go to a movie theater, I can go in and perky, and at the end of 2 hours, I'm so drained just by the presence of people. Um, You know, I'm looking, you know, but even then, I go to Matsuri Con. I've got a little bit better with, I've been there for years now. I'm getting a little bit better at taking pictures and crap. I don't know if I'm going to make Days of the Dead in Atlanta. There's a chance that Jeff and I will go, but it's right now. It's really kind of teetering. I don't know. I've got so much other crap going on. I don't know if I can swing it, but we'll see. And so, you know, again, when the guys had one of my beers this past weekend. Again, I got feedback of you got to do this more often. So I'm going to make in 2018. You're going to start seeing me not only make more beer if you're around here, but you're going to start seeing more videos on how to use the Grandfather and other techniques that I use. I mean, this is crazy, but it's like fifth or sixth on one of my most watched videos is me using a sparge arm, a rotating sparge arm on the Grandfather, shot with my iPhone, no narration. It's, I don't know, 30 seconds. So there is a desire to learn from others. It's not necessarily like I have the answers. It's just other ideas that you can incorporate. So I'm looking forward to that. So we'll see. But I think 2016 felt better than 2017 felt better than 2016 for a lot of reasons, not just because of the growth of the channels, and I think it's exciting as a fan to see the growth we're seeing with WCBS, and I hope that things do well. I have no idea if I'm going to have a cameo in the movie, so don't ask Jeff. I mean, I'll travel to Kindo's for a day. That's fine. But even if I'm not at all, and don't ask me what Lapis Anus means because I have no freaking clue. I have turned it into Lapis Anus. I actually shot two of the videos I shot today have Lapis Anus as how I introduced myself. My wife thinks it's funny too. It's like one of these. It's like an insult, but I don't care. You know, it's like maybe it's I don't know what it is. It just is right now. But it doesn't bother me. Now my mother would probably be absolutely irate. So I would highly suggest if you ever meet her, don't say it. She has no care. She's in her 70s, and she'll give you lip. I don't care how old you are. I mean, 30 years ago, I watched her walk up to somebody in a Kroger and the guy was smoking, and chastised him for smoking in a grocery store. And the guy put his cigarette out. Okay? So she's the exact opposite of me. She's outgoing. A bit more outspoken, and is not afraid to get in your face and poke you right in the chest and make you feel like you're full of crap, even if you're right. So, as a grandmother should be, I think. I think that that needs to be that way. But that's my wrap up. I like your list. I liked everybody else's list. I still think Kendo chose Wonder Woman just to get my goat, but he'll deny it. He'll deny it. But again, the new Tomb Raider movie, skinny woman playing her. I understand it's a kind of an origin story, which we didn't need. We didn't need yet another freaking reboot of that. I mean, they've rebooted the game, 3 times now? It's ridiculous. But the whole and she's flat chested. That's what really gets me. It's like the whole point of the video game was to. And here's what's really crazy: is my own daughter used to play the older version, not the original, but like when the first reboot when she still had some curves to her. Young women don't. It doesn't bother them if they're into gaming. It's only the people like Anita who aren't into gaming who find a way to be offended. So there was no reason to make her like a size AA chest. That's just stupid. She doesn't need to be a quadruple D. I get it. There are proportions that are crazy, but the whole point of this is fantasy and a slight suspension of disbelief. Not, oh my gosh, it has to be 100% realistic. So anyway, I digress. Any other topics before we cover our BBC and close this thing almost at 2 hours? I mean, I got my eyes closed while I'm talking because that's how tired I am.
I guess you could say the same about me, but I think part of it is the alcohol. Again, I haven't drank alcohol in a very long time. Not for any dumb reasons. I just by choice and never just really bothered to. Again, like I said, money wasn't good, so that was also another reason that factored into it. Now I have a little more leeway. It's different, so the body hasn't really had it. God, I am like so. God, I feel like I became such a lightweight. But no, I mean, I was gonna tell the audience, I really had more in terms of like what I want to talk about. But the reality was, I really like a lot of it was gonna deal like with games, for example. Unfortunately, Kenna wasn't here. I know there were a few game choices that he probably would have been interested in, talk more about, And I haven't really played all of them. Some of them good. Some of them were a waste of time. I was really upset at one title in particular. Maybe I'll talk about it on Facebook, and I'll probably say, you know what, it's been pretty cool with the Facebook. I've actually started to, like I said, I coming out of my own more, having conversations. Just to give a quick shout out, Nathan Walton. I'm guessing that's a Snoke avatar. Gordon E. Abernathy, who was, I believe it's you. We were talking about like the situation going on with some YouTube drama. I wasn't too sure what was going on, and I know a few other people who put up some videos and stuff like that. If I forgot your name, it's sorry, it's because I'm only like just now getting to really have conversations with a lot of you guys. A lot of them are pretty good. Like Gordy Newlands is another one. I'm just going through a list of the ones I see immediately. Don't feel bad if I haven't mentioned you. If you guys listen to the show right now, you guys all seem like cool people. Great. Thanks for like opening up the discussion. I felt like this is exactly what I wanted from the Fancast, that we can open discussion, debates, and that's basically it. I have no more to say, so just bring on the BBC. Let's put this big bed, and maybe I can knock out after another quick shot of booze.
All right. So this week's BBC, Eric's asking if I passed out yet. Well, almost, and I got like 3 more beers to. I mean, I got some high grabs that I'm going to finish, and I don't care. I got a patrol tomorrow. I got to be up by 7, and my daughter's banging one of the doors for some reason.
Otherwise, suck.
So this week's BBC is Hope Beel. She is a fitness model. She is quite gorgeous. I'm bending the rules a little bit because I pretty much think we've got some, enhancements here in the upper deck. I don't care. Gorgeous butt, very nice skin tone, good muscle development in the delts. But she's muscular and feminine at the same time, which is what I really like in a fitness model, especially a female fitness model. I've got 2 images of her on the thumbnail. I don't know a whole lot about her. I guess I could quickly Google. But I did date a woman named Hope a long time ago. You can follow her on Instagram. I will probably put her link in there so that people can see. I actually we got accused a few weeks ago of clickbaiting. I forget who it was the BBC that week, and we didn't really talk about her. She wasn't even in the description. I got to make sure I put it in there. She is 28 years old, which is great. She's almost 30, born in 1989. She's from Texarkana, Texas. So She's an Aquarius for anybody that really gives a crap. I
I
went
believe.
looking for fitness models and I found her and I thought that was very nice. She looks very good. She's got dark hair, which I really like. She doesn't wear a lot of makeup, but if you go and find her, there's a great picture of her taking a big yawn. But she's got the strength and the femininity. I mean, this is the kind of woman that, granted, I like the chest to be real and probably about a C cup and not as big as she's got. She would make a great Wonder Woman and be believable when she's throwing tanks around. And so here is an example, listeners, of what I'm talking about. She has well-defined arms, but they're not huge, but she does lift real weights. You can tell with that butt that she does actual squats. So that's enough about Hope Beel. And we do have some comments on last week's video, most of them from No Filter, one of which I will read. This is a literal quote, stick is to Disney guys and watch it drop and help them go broke. Chris Littleton does not believe in punctuation. He tends to write and run on sentences. He tends to speak and run on sentences. But you know what? I love him for it because he may be a very powerful personality, but he is very consistent. He has multiple personalities as far as on YouTube. He shows up as the Cape Crusader and a bunch of others. You can just tell by the sentence structure it's him. But whether you agree with him or not on every point, I will say this, the man is very consistent in his views and his approach, and I will give him credit for that. And I agree. We need to stick it to Disney. I really feel that if the backlash with The Last Jedi is real and we see a real drop, Solo, the movie, is going to be the first oh crap, really big oh crap moment for Disney. Because people aren't going to have a crap. You've already ruined Solo once. We're not going to let you ruin it a second time. And I suspect it does nowhere near what Rogue One. So I'm going to predict it right here, 40% drop based off of Rogue One. And because it's an in-between movie. It also has some other competition. I'm sure Disney will blame everybody but the stupidity behind Kathleen creating the stupid thing. And this is not, I'm not going to speak poorly of Ron Howard or the two that were, and it's not, I always want to say Clive and Piven, but I forget their names, because it was probably, the guidance they were given from the start was probably garbage, and I'm not going to blame them for it. This is all Kathleen Kennedy's doing. It starts at the top and ends at the top. So that is all I've got for episode 27. You got any other closing thoughts before we do the outro?
Nah, let's just go to the outro. I'll come up with something.
Something.
I'll figure something
Well,
out.
hey, this is almost 2 hours long. We'll see when I edit. My voice is nearly shot to crap. I got a lot to do before I can go to bed. This is going to go out because if I don't do it now, I won't get this till earliest would be Sunday afternoon sometime, because I have to patrol Sunday as well. 11 to close, 11:30 to close, which is like 4:30. So you're looking at 8 or 9 o'clock Friday, a Sunday, if I'm lucky. So I have been your semi-ailing host, Brainmuffin, the lifting nerd, also known as Lapis Anus, and with me tonight has been a longtime listener, supporter, and believer, Liquid Metal Pro.
Damn, I don't even know what to say. Fuck it. I'm just probably gonna tap to the thumbnail and just call it a night.
To say good night, Gracie, and we will see you all next year. I don't know exactly when we're going to have another one. Hopefully we'll get Eric back. I would love to get Oggs and Justin B back. Even if it's just for an episode or two, guys. I know you listen. Please comment. Let us know what the heck's going on. I know you're in the Fancaste chat on Facebook. I don't care if it's only, you can only talk for 20 minutes. Let's get some life back in this. And Frank, please, Frank, get your computer fixed, dang nabbit. And, we like your twisted insight and that Thanos, the Hands of Fate, is your favorite movie. So, signing off for this year, we'll say goodnight to 2017. We'll say hello to 2018 as soon as we get the chance. Check me out on my main channel. I know there's 2 Brian Lape channels on YouTube. One has one video with like 38,000 views or more, with lots of comments, mostly disparaging against my daughter, and they can go suck it. I never did the follow-up to that. Well, I sort of did, but I never really did. Maybe one of these days when I get back into photography, I'll do that whole thing all over again. I will put links to Hope as well, her Instagram and her images. You can check her out on your own. You can fap or do whatever the heck you want. I don't care. I'm not going to judge as long as it's not illegal or immoral. Well, heck, if it's not illegal, immoral is a different question. And we will see you all as soon as we see you. Bye.